Welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Lives. And I am recording this episode from a house I'm staying in Sundance Resort in Utah. So I arrived here very late last night. My flight got in around 11:15 in the evening. And so my biological clock is East Coast and this is mountain time. So it was really like 1:15 in the morning. And then I had to rent a car and then drive in like an hour. So by the time I got into a hotel room and was closing my eyes, it was 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, really, by my biological clock. But I'm fine today. I'm not really tired. And I've had a cappuccino at dinner, so I'm ready to go. But I wanted to record this for tomorrow because I have a commitment to do one of these Activating Abundance episodes every single week. And I made that commitment last March to do it for 12 months straight. And so I am not going to skip one single week, even if I am not at home. So I packed my mic. So I couldn't pack my mic stand because my mic stand's too big. So I am holding my mic. If you're watching me on YouTube, you can see me. I'm in this most beautiful house. I stayed in a hotel room last night because I couldn't get into the house here because it was too late at night. And it ended up that a snowstorm hit today. So if you see in any of my pictures on social media, you'll see, but it is a winter wonderland. And when I got here around 10 o'clock this morning and I met the guy whose house, this is actually a friend's of ours house, and he is kind enough to let me stay here while I'm doing some training with one of my mentors. And when we got here, we met here, we met at a grocery store and he said, follow me. And we drove up the mountain. It only took like 15 minutes, but it had been snowing and there were probably 6 inches when we arrived. So he had to get somebody to plow out the driveway so I could pull into it. And then I had to go somewhere at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So just in those 3 hours of me being here and getting unpacked and situated, I shoveled the little front walk, and in 3 hours, it was already three inches or 4 inches again. So it's kind of crazy. I think they had probably a foot of snow here. And some people might be afraid, but I love driving in the snow. I don't know what it is about me, but I think it's an adventure. So it was a real treat. And I love the snow and I love being in ski resorts, even though I'm not a skier, but I just love the ambiance of it. I'm very mountain girl, rustic. And so I love it. Where I live in Virginia, though, isn't really mountains. People laugh when they think I say mountains because we have 3,500, 4,000 foot mountains where I live. And here it's I think 7,000 feet is Park City. So anyways, apparently Sundance, where I am, is a little bit, it's the lowest elevation. I just learned that today. So, but they haven't been getting a lot of snow. And so this is a real treat for them and they're all excited. So I'm sure all the skiers are excited. But anyways, the reason why I'm telling you all this is because I am here because of a nudge. I am here this week because something spoke to me about setting this trip up. And I spent so much of my life ignoring my nudges. And I talked about this, I think 2 episodes ago when I was talking about, maybe it was last week's episode, but I was talking about so much of my life. I did this speech where I was a finalist in this breakthrough contest. And it was about finally answering the nudge to quit my corporate job, which I really was not loving. And I wanted to do something else. And I had figured out what that was. And it was just a matter of jumping and trusting. And so this kind of follows up with that because that was a nudge, although the title of the episode really was about trusting, having faith and walking in faith, but it all starts with a nudge, right? So, but you just have to trust that nudge. So you have to get that nudge and then trust that nudge. So the nudge kind of precedes the trust part. So I guess you got to trust you're going to get a nudge, right? But just to really start to pay attention to what comes up, and that we often and I still do this. I mean, I still have like these conversations in my head about trying to talk myself out of things, but I really do pay attention and listen and to that, what is your intuition, which is really what a nudge is. And so the reason that I did this trip was because, well, first of all, I'll give you the little bit of the backstory. So Alex Paulos is really what I would consider a savant in the world of recognizing people and seeing. He can look at somebody and know what kind of personality they have, and it's he knows who they are, their authentic self, because his theory is that, and it's been tried and true. He's obviously he's researched this many years, and he's very, very smart. But he has found that we're born genetically. Our genetics are born. Now, our environment plays a part in how we show up in the world, but our innate personality, like who we're supposed to be in the world, why we came to Earth, is we have that personality. And when we don't operate in the world aligned with that personality, with our authentic self, then we aren't happy. We aren't fulfilled. And when you're very misaligned, it can cause health issues, and it can cause sickness, and it really can cause relationship issues and all different kinds of things. And so I first learned about this, and I've had him on my podcast. I'll, in the show notes, I'll put the reference to the podcast episode that he was on, but it's probably been like a year and a half. But no, it's probably been like a year. Anyways, so I first heard about him on a podcast. So my business coach had him on his podcast. And, you know, I love what I do because I am so open to, number one, listening and learning. I love podcasts. And when I hear people, and then I go and I Google them and I research them further, and oftentimes books are recommended. So I've just learned a lot from being open to listening to people and learning from people. And so I remember, and again, goes back to the nudge. When you hear somebody and it really resonates, then that's something is calling to you. If you see somebody or hear from somebody and it resonates, then follow up on it. There's a reason that it's connecting to you in that way. And so I heard him on the podcast, and I immediately was fascinated by the subject. And he was talking about what he does and how he types people. And my business coach had him at his high level mastermind, and he had gone there and typed people. And so he was sharing that story. And so as soon as because I listened to it in my car, and as soon as I had a chance, I pulled over and Googled him. And I made an appointment on his website to get typed. And so that led to me wanting to collaborate with him. And so I ended up starting to work with him, and he comes in. So in my second half Spark School, I have him type. Well, it's actually, he has a team of people now. And so they type people. So they basically come in and tell my students who they really are, like what authentically who they're supposed to be. And sometimes people are operating as their authentic selves, and sometimes they're not. So it's like, it's self-denial or self-actualized. And then there's 12 self-transcendent. And so anyways, it's a very fascinating process. And it really is a breakthrough moment for many people to like have somebody see them for who they really are, when in many cases they're fighting against that because they're trying to please their parents, or they're trying to be the person that their boss wants them to be, or for whatever reason, they're denying their true self. And a lot of it's because society and labels, and it's because, we're in my case, I was, climbing the success ladder, but it wasn't fulfilling me. And so it was like I was going after the wrong things. And so it's a very enlightening experience. And it's usually the beginning of a very unfolding and incredible journey, because we all want to make sure that we, while we're in this life, we know who we are. Because when you know who you are and you show up and be the person you're supposed to be, you shine your light brighter, and it affects everybody. It makes the world a better place. And so that's why I'm so passionate about helping people find who they are authentically and show up as that person, because you're going to be fulfilled. And when you're fulfilled, it just makes the world a better place. And nobody should be here just like misaligned in life, because that just makes you unhappy, and it makes also the world less happy, right? So that's the backstory of really how I met Alex and how we have connected, as just because he resonated with me. His whole thing was just like a nudge. I want to learn more about this, and then a nudge, I want to work with him, and that just thinking he can really help my students. And he has something that I can't offer them. So how can we work together? And he was really amenable to that. So fast forward. So we of course, we're texting, and I don't bug him very much, but when I open doors for enrollment like about once a quarter. I haven't opened doors for about 6 months now, but getting ready to in January. So if you're interested, then stay tuned. So we started talking about me like learning on a deeper level. And so, but you kind of just put that out there and you don't really act on it sometimes. And so it was really funny because a couple of months ago, my husband and I were at a golf event in our neighborhood. And it's one of those events where it's called a member guest. And so all members invite somebody from, and usually the person comes from out of town, but somebody who doesn't belong to the club. And in this case, it was a childhood friend of one of my husband's friends who he golfs with, and he lives in Utah. And so because of the pandemic, they hadn't had the member guest for like a year and a half. And so we were seeing these people that we hadn't seen for a while, because usually the same member guest pair, they play together every year. And it's a reason they get together. The guys, it's like they get together, they have this golfing weekend, and they have such a great time. And so like my husband and his member guest partner, they've been friends forever. He happens to live local, but it's like every year they play this tournament together. And so this guy, Josh, comes into town, and it was like, oh my gosh, we haven't seen you for a year and a half. It's so good to see you. How you been? And so of course we know he's from Utah. And I said, oh, by the way, I might be going, and key in on I might be going to do a training in Utah. I just got to figure out the dates. So it's not like one of those things with Alex where it was like a lot of the trainings I go to, they're events, right? And you say, and there's a specific date, and you've got to make your plans around that date. And there's no like wishy-washiness around it. You just got to make that date. So with the thing with Alex, it was going to be like, whenever you want to set it up. And so when it's wishy-washy like that, it's easier to postpone. It's easier to like not really make the commitment, right? So when we're at this member guest event, and Josh, we're talking, and I said, I'm going to go to this. I'm thinking about doing this training. He said, oh, I have a house in Utah in Sundance, and if you want to stay there, yeah, it's all yours. And I'm like, what? Because you think about the cost, and you're like, oh, I got a hotel room, I got to fly out there, and so anyways, it was a nudge. That was a nudge. That was the universe nudging me to do something that I wanted to do, that I was really postponing and not being serious about, because I hadn't set the date, and I probably wouldn't have set the date because it was October, early October when that happened. And of course, what does the brain automatically think? I was going to Greece at the end of October. I was then Thanksgiving, then Christmas. Oh, and then January, I'm going to be doing my trainings and getting ready to open enrollment for my program. Oh, and then in February, we're going to Florida. Maybe sometime later next year. And that's kind of where my brain was. But when Josh offered up a house, I was like, that's a sign I should be doing this sooner rather than later. And I listened to it and I leaned into it. And so I set my wheels in motion to make it happen. And I remember I texted Alex and said, okay, I'm looking at these kind of dates. And then I texted Josh and I said, were you sober? Or were you serious when you offered up this place? Like, did you expect to hear from me? Or maybe you were hoping you wouldn't hear from me. But he was no, serious, do it. So we kind of settled on the dates and it all worked out. And the other thing that I was thinking about too is, you have this nudge and then you're always trying to talk yourself out of it, right? So I'm getting better at, once I realize that I have a nudge, to shut up my logic brain, like stop. I'm just going to do this. But it's loud, and it used to be really loud, and it would make me change my mind. And so what happens is you have this nudge, and then your logic brain comes in and says, oh, but that's going to cost a lot of money. Should you really spend that much money? You should be saving that for Christmas presents. That's like something. Or you think about other things like travel, like, it's not fun to travel when there's a pandemic. It's scary. And you think about, oh, I got to wear a mask on a 4.5-hour flight. That's kind of claustrophobic. Do I really want to do that? And then you think, part of I'm meeting this guy that I like adore him. And it's like this kind of like scary thing, like meeting in person. It's like, oh my gosh, is he going to like me? Oh my gosh, he's going to train me. Am I going to be, good enough? Am I going to pick this stuff up fast enough? So there's that fear of kind of failure, I guess, and judgment. And then you think about like, what can go wrong? Oh my gosh, like, I've never been there before. Can I find my way? I'm pretty good with navigating, so that doesn't scare me as much, but I'm just trying to think about like other people, what their brain would say to them. The weather, I saw that it was going to snow, and I thought, that is, getting there in a snowstorm. Like, should I stay in a hotel, which I ended up deciding to do, stay in a hotel the night of instead of trying to navigate up up the mountain when it could be snowing at night when I'm tired. And so you think about all these things, about reasons that not to go or to cancel or to postpone, or, to make the decision to say no versus yes. And I realize, because today, day one was amazing. It was like, I just posted on social media that on a scale of 1 to 10, it was an 11. It was like above and beyond. The snow was gorgeous. The connection with Alex, the training that I did, the conversation that we had. And then we went to this lovely dinner at Sundance, the resort. And it's like the total like place that I would love to be at, ambiance wise. Or a fire in the fireplace, this planky wood floors, and pictures of Robert Redford everywhere in his heyday, and I had the big crush on him. It was just like such a delightful day. And then I was thinking, as I was preparing for this episode and like the talking points, because I usually try to write down a little bit of an outline, even though it might not sound like it. But so I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, what? We never think about the amazingness that it could be. We only think about the things that could go wrong, which 99.9% of the time never happen, right? And so, like, had I known all this, for so many things before in my life too, I would have leaned into the nudges so much more, because how many nudges did I miss out on that could have, been enriched my life in so many ways. And so I wanted to share the fact that this was really a nudge. I mean, it was something that I wanted to do, but something that I could have easily put off and postponed, but I didn't. But I also didn't, I mean, the whole thing with Josh saying he had a place just pushed me over the edge, right? But I also feel that that is the universe. When you want something, the universe is going to find a way to help you. And so it's going to drop these little seedlings and these little hints and and you just have to be paying attention. And I was paying attention. I was like, there is a reason that this is here for me. And the universe is paving the way for me to go sit down, get trained, learn at a very much deeper level. So, because while I know Alex has the expertise and he's amazing and I could never be Alex, but I can learn at a deeper level. So I can help my students and my clients at a deeper level than I'm able to now. You can never go wrong, in my opinion, with a deeper level of training. And because what I do is help people find their authentic selves and show up in the way that they're meant to in the world, that that it's okay to be who you really are. And that to me is what I'm here to do. So to learn at a deeper level, to do better what I'm here to do, like, heck yes, nudge me more, nudge me into the direction that I'm supposed to be going. So anyways, hope this helped you. And if you're hearing a nudge, remember that, it's your logic brain is just going to fight you all the way, because that's just what our brain does. That's totally normal. But also know that your brain is going to always tell you the worst case scenario, and it's never going to, because part of it too is your brain is always looking for like examples, and examples are your experience, right? And so if you know of somebody who had a bad experience, or you might have had a bad experience or something, and you're comparing it, and oh, this could happen again. Our brain, since it doesn't have experience with like amazingness, like my brain has never had experience with the amazing kind of day I just had. Like, it's better than I could have ever possibly imagined. And so, yeah, our brain doesn't tend to go there because then our brain would say, you're really crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're thinking about. But anyway, so yeah, so just know that it's better. It's if you follow your nudge, it's a nudge for a reason, and it will be better than you can imagine. And just believe it's possible. So, all right. So next time I record an episode, I will be home, and I will, maybe have some more info will come up, because, these activating abundance episodes are always something usually that I think about based on my experience that I'm having. So they're very contextual in my life at the moment. And so I do sometimes think in advance what I should talk about, but oftentimes it changes because whatever happened to me that week is very applicable in terms of abundance. And so I want to share it. So hopefully you enjoy these episodes, and you'll keep tuning in. All right. See you next week. Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraverage.grandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own Not Your Average life.